Natasha, and thank you so much for joining me today. Today I am going to be, I was kind of inspired when I really made these little gorgeous postage stamps from scratch out of my stash, and this was like, I think I want to make bigger versions of these and make it a whole card front, I guess. So that's what I'm going to explore today. I am using some recycled materials. This was a box that had little individual ice creams in it, so I'm going to use that. It does have some little score marks through it, but waste not, want not. We can make it work. It'll be just fine. Now, I started off with just cutting with my scissors to get a rough shape that I wanted, but I realized that if I were going to put it on as a whole entire card front, that I would need to make sure, just for my mind to be at ease, that it was going to be sort of relatively even, I guess. Now, out of this Harvest little paper pad here, I'm going to take this sort of olivey green, I guess, colour. And then from the Christmas paper pad, I'm going to take this sort of almost crafty kind of cardstock, I would say, brown, craft coloured. And I'm just going to take those just to sort of try something a little bit different too, rather than just plain materials. But honestly, you could recycle here, you can use some scraps, we can make it work, whatever we've got. I didn't really measure the size, I really just cut it down so that the sides were pretty even. Now, as in my previous video, I showed these scissors, which are kids' scissors, but I prefer this method. So this is just a little singular hole punch, and all you do is just go along and do little half punches all the way along and go all the way around, and it ends up looking like a postage stamp. Now, I know I was kind of inspired to make the first little postage ones because postage stamps, postage dies, all the postage things seem to be a bit of a trend at the moment. All the new companies are coming out with them, and although I love them and they are gorgeous and stunning and I would love to have them, I felt like I could do something similar with the things that I already had. So I didn't have a die for this, but I think this worked out pretty well and I think it looks pretty good. Then I have some of these are actually adhesive backed. Now, I think I was gifted these. I think a subscriber sent these to me, so I'm unsure where they came from or even what brand. There's no brand on the packaging. They're just in a clear plastic bag. And so anyway, they are gorgeous. And so I've obviously hoarded them because I loved them. And I've just gone through my stash and sort of found things that I think you can use as backgrounds. Now, I love this gorgeous sort of ruler. I was deciding how much of that sign I wanted to have in. These sort of remind me of like number plates and all those sorts of things. And I must admit that with my whole process, as with the smaller postage stamps, I really don't measure. I kind of just hold it up against the background and cut it down to match. Now, obviously, I could use rectangle dies and things here, or my trimmer. These would work in a trimmer really nicely. Absolutely. But all you're looking for is sort of background pieces of ephemera or gel prints or things like that would look beautiful. You could even do your own collages that you've made, but paper pads, pattern paper, all of those would work beautifully. Now, again, I'm going to bring out the time flyers because there are some small elements down here, but I just, at this point, it's sort of the gathering point. And I just really go through my stash, see what I can find, see if I've got things that are going to work in a bigger scale than what I had previously created, because previously I was looking for really small items that were going to fit in. Now, this time it's much bigger, and as I said, I want one of these to fill the card front. So I must admit, I end up loving how these came out. I really, really love this. I would do this again in a heartbeat. I think this is just a really gorgeous cards that I created. I was really happy. But you can let me know once we get to the end what you think. But at this point, I'm just fussy cutting out some images. I am looking at the backgrounds. I'm going for a sort of vintagey feel like the first one, similar to the first ones. But I was just sort of challenging myself to see if I could scale them up and create them for an entire card front. So this, as I said, is adhesive backed, which makes life super duper easy. And then I'm going to, I wouldn't say line it up, but line it up the best that I possibly can on my background here. And if you don't get it right, I was able to pull it off and then pop it down again. I didn't have everything pre-planned. I didn't plan everything out. This is sort of just, you know, I'm just going along and trying things, holding them in front of it. If I like the look of it, I'll keep it. If I don't like it, then I'll shift it on. I'll move it on. Again, these are all adhesive backed, but if you were to use gel prints, you could get out your stamps and do some collaging. Now look, this one didn't fit, so I'm going to make it fit for what I need. So I just cut off part of the edge and redo the holes and we're good to go again. So it doesn't matter what size it is, I just make it fit whatever I need. And this really did end up being a bit of a sort of, search to the bottom of your drawers, search for all the old things that I've sort of kept and loved, but have fallen to the bottom because it's not my absolute usual style of card making, I would say. Now, these are the Avista 49 and Market elements, laser cut elements. These are just stunning. I love these. 49 and Market have lots of them, lots of different ranges of these, and I could buy them all. These are all gorgeous because they don't have the white border. They are sort of relatively sturdy cardstock, and I just love the fact that when you pop them out, they don't have any white border at all. So this is right up my alley. I do love 49 and Market things. I absolutely am not sponsored by them. They have never sent me anything. I've never communicated with them even. I wouldn't have a clue, but I do love their products and I think they're just really up my alley for card making. So I did think that wreath could go really nicely, but at this point I actually decided to just pull out all of the elements because it was just going to be easier for storage, and then I just start pulling things together with what I think I might like, what I think might work, and sometimes I think it's best just to not overthink it. I think it's best to just glue down, and that sort of, for me, it almost like takes away choice. It takes away some of the overwhelming choice. And once I've glued things down, it's like, okay, so work with it from here. So I glued down the clock face, and then I thought maybe some foliage might be really nice, and then this gorgeous butterfly. I do like a little bit of colour, and I think some of these laser cut elements do bring a little bit of colour to these somewhat vintagey looking large postage stamps. I guess it's a bit unrealistic having really large ones, but there are no rules. It's just what we would like to do. Then there were some of these little sayings like believe in yourself and it's all good, and I wondered whether I should put those on instead of a sentiment for a card, but I'm going to hold fire on that idea. I've got it just sitting there. These are the washi tape flowers that again provided just a little bit of colour, and when I put this on here, I'm going to choose one of these. I just think this looks stunning. But one of my hacks here, what I think is good to do, is cut it out first. Cut it while it's still in its packaging. And I wanted to do this so I could have those roughly straight edges. And I'm going to sort of center it to the bottom right of my little postage stamp bit there. And that way I can go straight edge against straight edge. But this just provides, it sort of sinks into the background. You sort of can't, you can see the edges, but it's not too obvious, and I think it provides a perfect amount of little colour there. But go through your stash, see what you've got hiding down there. You can put die cuts on, you could put stamps on. Go through your stamps and see what you would like to stamp if you want to create a collaged background or a stamped background of all these words and numbers and symbols all put together. There are lots of fabulous tutorials out there for creating sort of collage sheets. I would love to do some creating my own collage tissue paper. I think that's on my to-do list. Let me know if you would like me to film that process or whether that's something I just do for myself because I'm interested in it. All those good things. So you can kind of have a look through your stash or create something and just enjoy the process. And that's really what I was doing with these 3 postage stamps here. I was just absolutely having a ball, adding elements together, seeing what worked, adding a little bit of greenery down here in the bottom right hand corner. Now, as for links to these bits and pieces, as usual, I will put what I can find links to that's still available down in the description box below this video. You can click the little show more button and that will pop up down there. But I suspect that lots of these things I won't be able to find, and it really just is a matter of shop your stash and see what you can find. Now I am going to add a little bit of ink to the sides here and a little bit on the actual images as well. I'm using some Distress Oxide ink. I only have the vintage photo colour. That's the only brown colour I have, and so that's what I'm using today. I'm using a little finger dauber, and again, because I'm going for that sort of vintagey look, I think it's working out really well. Now this one here is probably the most simple. It's really just a background and then that flower, but I absolutely love it. And I've done 2 of those sides there, 3 of the sides, and you can see just that extra little bit that it gives it. I haven't done that right hand side, so I'm just going to add a little bit of ink around the edges, and that just sort of adds that extra finishing touch. Now you can absolutely just stop here. These look gorgeous as is, but just because these are, I guess, technically postage stamps, well, that's what they're meant to be, then I'm going to add these little postage stamps marks here on to these ones. I mean, they could just be a decorative patterned border at the moment with some pretties on the inside. I guess they're not necessarily postage stamps, but at least this will help them go in the right direction a little bit. I wasn't sure if I wanted full ink or if I wanted a stamped off version, so I just wanted to go light to begin with, because we can always go darker, but it's very hard to go lighter in this case. So I'm just using some VersaFine Onyx black ink, and then just putting a few different marks here and there around on them. There's no rhyme or reason to how I'm doing this. I'm just popping them on wherever I feel. I'm okay if it doesn't stamp perfectly. I feel like it doesn't on regular postage stamps anyway. It's just one little element to the postage stamp overall. It's not sort of something that people are going to look at in great detail. Then from here, this is the 3 that we've sort of completed, and these are gorgeous, and now we're going to work on the other bits to turn them into cards. This is a newish stamp set to me. Well, it's a new one to me, but I don't actually know if it's new at all. I have no idea when it came out. This one is called Old Labels, and I love the look of these. I love the faded sort of nature of them. I love the lines. There's a couple of other stamps on there that look really nice for just adding texture into the background of things. So I have some vanilla malt cardstock. This is from Lawn Fawn. Then I have some Pinecone VersaFine Clair ink, which I've just tipped upside down. And then this is going to stamp beautifully. The VersaFine Clair would hands down be my #1 go-to ink if I want a clear, crisp, stamped image. However, they do not have a huge range of colours. They've got quite a few, but just like they don't have, 3 or 4 brown shades. As far as I know, they might have 1 or 2. I certainly only have 1, and so it just wasn't quite right. So I stamped in my vintage photo, and I just liked that better for this project. It was just more the colour I needed. So even though the other one stamped beautifully, I figured I may as well stamp a few whilst I'm here. And I'm trying to stamp it just so I ruin one of the ones on the other side of that cardstock, and I can still cut out the other 2. So I will cut out all of these, and then the ones that I don't use today, I will put in the back of the packaging, so that maybe next time I come to use them, if it happens to be the right colour, then I will be good to go, and I can skip a step altogether. I love a few things about these labels, but #1 is that they are big enough that lots of the sentiments I have that aren't necessarily, they don't go together at all, they're not even from the same company, but lots of the sentiments that I have are going to be able to fit inside these labels. So I happen to be using the Happy Birthday Many Ways stamp set from Catherine Paula, and I decided to just do a couple of different fonts. So I'm just using some selective stamping. Stamp the happy, then clean the stamp off, and then stamp the birthday so that I can stack them. You could also cut your stamp apart, that would work well too. I used a couple of happy birthday ones. I must admit, at this point, I wasn't even sure if I wanted to make them happy birthday cards. I wasn't sure where I was going. This whole thing is a bit of an experiment, and that's okay. This one here, I put some double-sided tape on the back. I have some very fine gold thread, which I absolutely love. It's nice and delicate in nature. It brings a little bit of a shiny, sparkly element to the card. I'm just going to stick the back in some of that adhesive and then wrap it around a few times. The notches make it really easy, so it's not going to shift at all. And then actually I decided I would thread on one of the happy birthday tags, and that way it would still give some movement to the tag on the front as well, which is another fun element for a card. If you don't like the idea of it moving around, or you're not sure if it's going to stay in place, then you can just add a little bit of glue or a glue dot or something behind it, and that way it's actually just going to stay exactly where you want it to be. But this one was kind of tight enough and the placement was perfect that I actually didn't feel like this was going to move around, so I didn't tack it in place or anything extra at all. Then I just add a little bit more double-sided tape on the back of this little recycled cardboard here, put it down onto a vanilla malt card base, a 4 1/4 by 5.5 inch card base. And I just love this as is. I actually just really like this. I was tempted to go further, but at this point I thought I would just stop, see how I felt once I'd moved on. But I quite like it. Then for the next one, I sort of had all these grand plans, but actually when I put them down, I really just like that they are simply the focal point. I decided to sort of not take them any further and just actually leave this one without an outside sentiment. And I was really happy with that too. So I had so much fun creating these today. I mean, when I hold the sentiment up, it felt like it covered up too much of it and I couldn't find the right place of it. So yeah, no sentiment it is. Anyhow, thank you so much for joining me. Let me know what you think of these cards in the comment section down below. And other than that, I will see you in the next video. Thanks, bye.